Welcome to another exciting episode of the Epic Entrepreneurs Podcast. I'm Brad Sugars, the Chairman and CEO of ActionCOACH, and today we're diving into the minds of some incredible business leaders, uncovering their real stories, strategies, and the secrets behind their victories. It's not just about success, it's about the journey, the hurdles, and turning challenges into opportunities. So let's jump right into it.
Today, I'd like to introduce Doug Brennan to this episode of the Epic Entrepreneurs Podcast. Doug owns a Southern Plumbing with a number of locations around Wellington in New Zealand. Doug has been in business for 42 years and employs 25 team members. So, welcome, Doug. Let's start with your top three things you did that made you successful in business and how others can follow in your footsteps.
For me, I thought the most important ones were taking responsibility for the failures, things that went wrong. For instance, debtors, you can say, well, the reason why they didn't pay you is because they didn't pay you. Or you can take responsibility and go, well, what did you do to ensure they would? And what systems did you create to make sure it didn't happen again the next time? It does take a while to get past that for most small businesses.
And how did you actually achieve that?
Getting deposits before we start. That tested whether they actually had any money or not. Asking for money it was a qualification in itself. Also, at the very initial phone call, that's probably the best place to actually deal with debtors. Is that initial phone call? So you dictate the terms at that initial phone call. You tell them that you require payment on completion of the work if it's a small job, not on an invoice, not 20th of the month following, not 7 days after the invoice and all that. They actually pay as soon as you finish the job. That's when they're liable for it. On the bigger jobs, of course, we get deposits and that 50%, and then periodic payments along the way on those bigger jobs. Make sure there's very little outstanding. But we stopped working for builders too. That we found they were at very high risk or too high a risk, and the margins were really low. I think if you're going to work for builders and things, you've got to make sure that you know them personally. There's an amazing relationship there, but that's rare to find in most instances.
Yeah, look, I totally agree. It's so important that you actually position payment terms right up front.
Yes.
And then, there can be no question and arguments down the track. So
getting prices agreed before you start any work, that's the other big one. So we don't do any charge up work anymore now. It's all priced before we start everything.
Yeah. And you mentioned systems. So, what were some of the systems that you implemented in the early stages that have got you to where you are today?
Creating scripts, phone scripts that we know work. For instance, a script on the telephone that starts that conversation about, our charges are, and then we give them the charges and what's included in that charge, and we require payment on completion. The other one would be if there is a debt, follow it up very, very quickly, like within a few days, not weeks. Documenting what you're doing. Follow-up phone calls, see if the job went okay, if that hasn't been done up at that point. I've written a few things down. Sticking to things that work. We have a bigger team here, so we have a management team, and if I allow them to take over things while I'm not here, ensuring that they stick to systems, not we will just do that, and immediately that's a script for we'll just abandon that system we've had for years that works, and we'll just go and do something else. And they find out the hard way, running the business by the seat of your pants actually doesn't work.
There's a reason why that system was in place.
Yeah, that's right. And after years, they forget it until they rediscover it after dropping it. Yeah. And so you can have things that have been resolved for decades, and suddenly it'll re-emerge if they just, we'll just not bother with that. We don't really need to do that in this case. The customer's got special circumstances and why they don't need that, and they do. They all need it.
And generally, when that happens, Doug, what's the outcome? What
Chaos.
actually happens?
Chaos happens. Yeah.
Chaos. Yeah, and I imagine a lot of rework
time,
and
a lot of lost
additional
time.
cost.
Recovering the data.
Yes.
I mean, there's risks. We actually say there's more than just health and safety risks. There's data risk, and there's technical risk, making sure you're not doing jobs that are out of your skill and experience. But we actually have data risk too. I mean, and we resolve that initial phone call, making sure they know what they're up for, getting rid of that. When they start becoming demanding there, that's the time to drop them right there. I mean, you suddenly think of a very high price and then to make them go away, rather than taking on that challenging customer. Let them go somewhere else, and they can be dramatic somewhere else.
So important in business. So back in the beginning then, Doug, what made you decide to get into business, and why this particular business?
Well, I left school in the 60s, early 70s. And at that point, there was either the trades or the public service primarily. There weren't a lot of other occupations. And I wanted a skill. I didn't want to go into some admin situation, because where you've got skill attached to the occupation, it gives you that advantage. You're providing value. I wanted to do something that was going to provide value somewhere and be able to charge for that. And I was good with my hands. I was a technician.
Okay.
You know, like most small businesses, there's always a technical component to everything you do. So you go into business where you've got that skill, and that is not the right reason to be in business, though, I can tell you. You do have to become an entrepreneur, whether you like it or not. Unless you're planning on hiring someone else who's got all those skills, you'll be the technician. It's a journey of discovery, isn't it? Learning how to run a business. And I think it took me about 7 years to get rid of the arrogance that I could do on my own. I had to start pulling in people. I suppose you could argue that a coach is really just another employee, just a bit further removed. So you've got someone inside the business really, who you can talk things over with, and identify that there is actually business management structures, and being systematic about going through things. I think the moment you get your first employee, you've got a communication problem, because at that point you haven't got any systems to transfer what's in your head over to somewhere else to outline how that job's supposed to get done. Or I think too that over the period of years, if you document things, I mean, I actually use my own systems, and my managers have always chastised me if I don't use my own systems, because that is usually the quickest and simplest way of going about anything. It's most efficient, is actually document those things so that you can actually pass things over. And someone in the business being in control of that, not... I mean, we do have weekly meetings with our team and our management team, and it can be dangerous if they suddenly think of a new system on the fly. Testing that thought as to why you think you want that and what the consequences are of suddenly dreaming something up for a problem that probably shouldn't have existed if they'd followed the old system. You know, what's wrong with the old system? What are you not following? And what will be the cost of the new system? How much will that cost in time and money to actually implement that? And added bureaucracy. But I think most businesses are already providing some sort of service or product, and from there it's an invoicing process, really, isn't it? From the phone call to the money appearing in a bank, it's the shortest distance between the 2 points. So you want to try and eliminate all that drama that goes in between it too. I mean, you can't ask, if you haven't got a price for a product or service, you can't ask for the money. There's the big problem right there. If the outcome is the money in the bank, you better figure out how you're going to get it there quickly as possible, and chop it up.
Absolutely, and a sale is not a sale until
That's
the
true.
money is in the bank.
You're only after the money. Yeah. Show me the money. I mean, without that money, you can't do much.
Yeah, Doug, you mentioned communication, and particularly back in the early days. And I guess one of my philosophies is that communication is the response you get. So if the response you get after you've, let's say, communicated or delegated and what you expect to happen is not happening, you've really got to bring it back on yourself to question whether you've actually communicated that in the right way. So tell me a bit about how you've managed over the years to really improve that communication with your team members.
Well, I think the book The Year is essential reading in that department. I think many years ago now, probably 30 years ago, I read that book, and I went to Australia, found it in a bookshop there, couldn't stop reading it for the entire holiday I was there. Came home and just did a brain unload into a rough Word doc at the time, and then just fleshed it out from there. And we ended up with a giant Word doc. But later on, I actually got a professional document writer to form a template and put them into categories so that we each separate documents covering different fields. And then later on, I sort of changed it again, where I pushed it into departments. So I had marketing, sales, admin, finance, IT, and got into those broad categories. Operations. The operations one can be more technical, where you're just charging technical information to technicians, and they have more of a lookup, what to do in this situation. And the office side of it has the other categories really, which is, what marketing is effective. Because often businesses over the years, it'll do marketing and something won't be successful. And so if you've got the results of that marketing and how whether it did or didn't work and what did and what didn't, you can waste a lot of money on marketing where it doesn't do anything. And so you've got to test and measure that to find out what's functional and what kind of industry are you really in? Is it more of the customer has a need right now? How are they going to find you if they need that right now? Versus a customer that will be doing research into something like a bigger product. That's a different kind of marketing. Yeah, that's right.
Absolutely. So, taking all of that into consideration, what you've learned through the ebook, how did you personally have to grow, and what did you have to learn to create the success that you've got to now?
Well, you're investing in yourself, and that's part of a business expense, really. You've really got to make an allowance in your business to grow you and the management team, and to get yourself out of it. Because if you have to stop working in the business or even stop working on it, if you want to get past that point where you're just the owner of a business, you're actually having to grow everybody from you. You're growing you to get out of it, and then grow the team below you, and have things to look up and have a set of outcomes that ask for the results, and they aren't going to produce those results until you grow them, and they've got to be growing the people underneath them to step out of it.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. So, Doug, thinking about your journey in business, what's been the biggest challenge that you've faced, and then how did you actually overcome?
Well, at my stage of my career, it's learning to let go, and there's always a few things you hang on to. For some owners, I know they hang on to invoicing way too long, because that's where the money that's generally the money coming in, although it shouldn't be really, because it should be done through the sale is created over the phone or through a proposal, then the money should start coming in from there. The invoice should just be a formality. It shouldn't be a demand for money. Letting go of things. And in the end, there will always be things that you're hanging on to, the last sort of things. So you have to start sort of keeping a time sheet about what you're doing with your day to find out what things in there can be let go, and how will you do that? How will you communicate that, letting that go? And what protections will you put? Those are probably some fearful things to let go. So what protections could you put around that to let them go? Checklists, that sort of thing.
Yeah. What role did trusting others play in that, working on letting it go?
Well, trust, I think, only comes with repetitive successful outcomes. watching from afar, let them try those things. Had that turn out, okay, you didn't do the X, Y, Z. That's why that didn't turn out. So they can understand the risks too. Just recently, not that long ago, I wrote a risks document on all different risks the business faced. Business risks, so technical data, health and safety risks, and that was one aspect of letting it go. Then there was things like making sure the business did actually make a profit, and what would they do to make sure that it did make a profit? What checks would they go and look at? What reports do they have to look at every day or almost every job? In many cases, what we actually back cost all our jobs, so we have a sort of back costing report for every job. So going in before invoicing and going and checking those things before invoicing, and then okay, if things go wrong there, then what? What meetings are you having with who?
Well done. So let's look at business coaching for a moment. Why did you get one, and what has it enabled for you and the business?
I've been with Action a couple of times over covenant periods to look at different things. Like I think one of the things I learned with Action early on was the testing and measuring, getting and keeping score. Like one of the ones we do, even just now, we're going through a period of change where we're changing some things over how we deal with the telephone. So we've got the daily sales sheets back out again and going through those to make sure that whatever we're saying on the phone, the call comes in, how many calls we're getting, we make a sale on the phone, was that successful, what was the amount of money we achieved in that phone call, and then keeping a tally every day, then analysing the results. We've got some of that on our accounting system now too, where we record jobs won and lost, keeping a row of those things. What can we do to improve that? Where we're losing money in that process. And so over the years, I've had coaches that focus on a certain thing. One of my coaches recently I did was just getting me out of the business. I've had a couple of different coaches getting me out of the business, focusing on different aspects of it. And so that's some of my staff here probably thought it was a waste of money, but it wasn't for me. It wasn't important to them, but it was important to me.
Right. Yeah. Who are you currently working with?
Chris Wellington. Yeah.
And what's been the most important thing that you've learned in working with Chris?
Well, actually, I was away for 7 weeks on holiday, so he worked with my team while I was away. That was beneficial because I think there were discussions behind the scenes while I wasn't around that helped out with that. So there's no ways work with you can work with the team here too. Of course, my son's going to hopefully my son will take the business over when I retire, which is not far away, and he'll need a coach because he's got a lot of learning to do. He's got to understand the why. Oh, why did we put that system there? Why are we marketing this way? How often do we look at marketing? Actually, it's one of the things I'm teaching is I'm giving that up, and I have a marketing person in the business. Every day I will just do a quick check. Might take me 1 minute, half a minute, just how we're doing on our website ranking. How are we doing there? And it might once a week if I talk to that person just for maybe 10 minutes about focusing on X, Y, Z, but they have to understand what to look at.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And so, again, thinking about some of the things that you've learned through coaching, how has the coaching actually helped you keep focused on, I guess, applying the right focus, attention and energy on doing those, what I call the right things?
I think a lot of businesses get caught up in day-to-day stuff and having the time, actually allocating time to sit down with a coach first and then enough time later on to implement those things. Should pretty much do it straight away, really. As soon as you had a talk to the coach, sit down and actually put a plan together about how to implement that stuff. Pull in the team that you're working with. I'm a big delegator. Actually, I delegate pretty much just about everything, and and most of it's automated. I actually don't work in the business at all, really. I don't do any day-to-day stuff, no admin, no login jobs, no answering the phone. I don't supervise jobs much anymore, but the odd query one.
So would it be fair to say then, Doug, that today you spend more time working on the business than in it?
I do, yes. Actually, there must be to write an ebook for a certain group of clients which we're targeting. We're doing a target on hotels, actually, all the hotels in Wellington, trying to see if they can get long-term maintenance plans for those places. So I'm writing an ebook on hotels that covers building and maintenance. So that's the sort of thing I do. A while ago we targeted rest homes, and that was very successful. Before that we targeted schools, and we've got to have another go at that. We've been successful there, but we need to be more successful. So we're going to have another shot at it.
Well done. So congratulations, and look forward to hearing about the results that you achieved from writing that ebook on how the importance of plumbing and around hotels. So well done. So one final question then, Doug. What is the top piece of advice that you have received or you would give to another entrepreneur?
In this fast-changing environment, and it's changing very quickly, you'll need to keep changing yourself to stay relevant, or your business stay relevant. If you don't do that, your opposition will eat your lunch, because they'll be getting coaching and they'll be climbing over the top of you. I actually always think, like, what would I do if I was starting the business all over again? Because you can get stuck with legacy systems and old stuff that you've got actually to pull away. And just actually yesterday we had a talk with the team. We were doing a 90-day plan. We've been doing it for over a week now. And we did a SWOT analysis. And one of the best part of that, we wrote out a list of all our competitors and what they're doing. The top ones, the ones that are closest to us, who would be probably the biggest threats. And what are they implementing in their business to actually stay more relevant or be more contactable? Plumbing is a service game, and it's a very competitive industry. In my city, it's 350 opposition businesses here in the city. Probably, so you got to be very, very relevant, and be contactable easily. So that's I'm looking at that all the time, and some of my coaches they'll comment on those things too. Make sure the marketing's working, testing and measuring, seeing that our leads are going up. If they're not going up, why are they not going up? Are we making sales? What's the conversion rate on sales? Those are the big things that I learned in the early days with Action. Keep checking those things. I mean, Wellington, New Zealand's going into a downturn at the moment. So we're one of the biggest downturns in our city for a while. So making sure that we have work coming in when actually the customer base is declining. So a lot of my opposition, they're probably having a hard time right now. We're not doing too badly, actually. We've been profitable this last while, pretty reasonably profitable, so that's a good thing.
Yeah, and I guess that a lot of that will be due to the relationships that you've actually been able to build up with your client base.
Yes. Well, we do email send outs to our client base. We've got quite a big client base, and we market to that. Have done for a long time.
Okay. So important, all the things that you've actually mentioned, Doug. So congratulations and well done on your achievements. And, it sounds like you've really got the business structured and set up in a way that, you can look forward to retiring out of the business and the legacy with your son coming through. So fantastic. Well done. Thank you for your time today.
Thanks very much.
And that's a wrap for today's epic conversation here on Epic Entrepreneurs. Huge thanks to our amazing guest for pouring their heart into sharing their journey. If you enjoyed this episode, hit that subscribe button, leave a review, share it, or hit that bell. But until next time, let's make sure you keep dreaming, take massive action, and stay epic.